There is one truth a narcissist will almost never reveal to you. A truth they may spend their entire life protecting with charm, anger, distance, silence, and even emotional displays that only appear when they serve a purpose. And here is that truth. A narcissist is not truly afraid of your anger. They are not frightened by your tears. They are not shaken by your promises to walk away. They have faced those reactions many times before and learned how to survive them. So what is the one thing that actually disturbs them? What creates fear beneath the surface of their carefully built identity? It is the moment you stop responding the way they expect, the moment you stop chasing explanations, the moment you stop trying to prove your worth, the moment you finally see them without the illusion they created. Because in that moment, something they have depended on for years begins to disappear. The mask starts to crack. The cycle of manipulation, control, and emotional influence that once gave them power suddenly finds nothing to hold on to. They are no longer looking at someone they can easily confuse. They are looking at someone who understands what is happening. And that is when a narcissist often begins to show behaviors that seem unusual, unpredictable, and very revealing. Once you recognize these patterns, you begin to understand something many people spend years trying to discover. The narcissist was never truly the one with all the power. You were. They simply worked hard to make you forget it. Before we continue, take a moment for yourself. If you have ever experienced manipulation, emotional confusion, or someone making you question your own reality while claiming to care about you, follow this channel now. Not because of anyone else, but because you deserve to understand what happened. Because what you are about to discover may completely change the way you recognize narcissistic behavior in the future. Most people never understand this important detail. Narcissists are not driven by genuine love, clear logic, or even simple hatred. Their deepest motivation is control. Control becomes their source of security. Control becomes the thing that protects them from facing the emptiness they carry inside. And the way they create that control is by carefully observing you. They notice your fears, your dreams, your insecurities, your emotional wounds, and your desire to finally be seen and understood. Then they present themselves as the answer to everything you have been searching for. That is why the beginning can feel so intense. It feels rare. It feels like a connection unlike anything before. But often what was happening was not true emotional closeness. It was information gathering. They were learning your emotional patterns so they could later use those same patterns to influence you. But when you begin healing, when you reconnect with your own identity, when you start trusting yourself again, the control they once had begins to weaken. And that is when their behavior often changes in ways that can be surprising to witness. Stay with this part, because this is where the entire dynamic begins to shift. When a narcissist feels their influence over you slipping away, they usually do not respond with self-reflection. Instead, they respond with fear disguised as confidence. They may suddenly become distant and cold, or they may become unusually affectionate and attentive. They might disappear without explanation, then return with overwhelming attention. They may create conflicts over small things. They may reopen old arguments. They may blame you for problems they created themselves. They may change the story of the past right in front of you, hoping you will question your memory, doubt your feelings, and return to the version of yourself they once controlled. But when you no longer react the same way, when you remain calm, when you stop defending yourself endlessly, something begins to happen inside them. Their sense of control starts weakening because their power was always connected to your emotional reaction. Without your reaction, their influence begins to lose its foundation. And this is the part many people never hear about. The narcissist is not a powerful person who occasionally shows weakness. Often, they are a deeply insecure person who creates a powerful image to hide what they fear inside. Beneath the confidence, the superiority, the harsh words, and the emotional distance, there is often someone who never learned how to feel secure within themselves. That is why they need to control situations. That is why they need constant admiration. That is why they feel threatened by criticism and challenged by anyone who refuses to accept their version of reality. They want to be respected, praised, followed, and rarely questioned. But when someone like you, someone who has started doing the inner work, someone who has learned their own value, enters their world and refuses to shrink anymore, the experience can feel deeply unsettling for them. Because for the first time, they are forced to face the emotions they have spent years avoiding, their insecurity, their fear, their hidden shame, their inner emptiness. And what they do next reveals more than anything else. It shows you the truth they tried so hard to hide. The first indication that a narcissist is beginning to lose their influence over you is unexpected and unreasonable anger, not normal frustration, not anger that comes from a situation that actually makes sense. It is a type of rage that appears suddenly, feels extreme, and is usually triggered by something incredibly small. A simple change in your tone, a message you answered later than expected, a healthy boundary you calmly expressed, a moment where you did not react the way they wanted. But the truth is, that rage was never truly about your action. It was about what they no longer received from you. You did not give them fear. You did not give them control. You did not give them the emotional reaction they were accustomed to taking from you. And when they feel that source disappearing, they often increase the intensity. In their unhealthy mindset, they believe that if kindness and charm stop working, pressure will work. If pressure fails, then creating chaos becomes the next option. They are not responding to the moment. They are reacting to the loss of control they feel inside. The second sign is sudden emotional distance, the silence, the cold behavior, the ignoring, the way they can sit across from you and act as if you do not exist. To someone who does not understand this pattern, it may look like they simply do not care. But beneath the surface, it is often not peace they are experiencing. It is a reaction. They are attempting to make you feel rejected, unseen, and emotionally desperate. They are watching to see if the old pain inside you, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of not being chosen, the belief that you are not enough, is still powerful enough to make you return and seek their approval again. But if you remain calm, if you stop chasing, if you allow the silence to exist without trying to repair it for them, you have done something they never expected. You have shown them that their absence does not control your emotional state, and that realization can deeply challenge the image they have created about their importance. But the next sign reveals an even deeper pattern. The third sign is blame shifting taken to an extreme level. Suddenly, every issue becomes your responsibility. Every hurtful thing they said happened because you pushed them. Every dishonest action they took happened because you failed to trust them. Every betrayal becomes something they claim you somehow caused. This is not simply a disagreement. It is an attempt to reshape your perception of reality. The narcissist tries to place guilt, shame, and confusion back into your mind because those emotions once made it easier for them to influence you. When you carry the blame for everything, they stay powerful. But when you see clearly, when you stop accepting responsibility for what was never yours, something changes. You become harder to control. You become emotionally stronger. You become free. And that freedom is the one thing they struggle the most to accept. The fourth sign is the smear campaign. When personal manipulation no longer creates the reaction they want, they often take the battle outside the relationship. They may start sharing their version of events with friends, relatives, coworkers, or anyone who will listen. They may describe you as difficult, unstable, selfish, uncaring, or impossible to deal with. They rewrite the entire story in a way that makes them appear innocent and makes you appear responsible. Sometimes they tell it so convincingly that even people who have known you for years begin to question what they thought they knew. But there is something important to understand. The smear campaign is not only about damaging your image, it is often about trying to rebuild the control they feel slipping away. If they can make others believe you are the problem, they hope you may start believing it yourself. They are trying to recreate the emotional prison you have started escaping from. The attack is often the reaction of someone who feels their influence disappearing. If this message connects with something you have experienced, if these patterns feel familiar, follow this channel now, because what comes next can help you understand the strength you are rebuilding. Leave one word in the comments, just one word. Awake. Let me know you are still here, because the next part is where everything becomes much clearer. Most people never understand that emotional independence is one of the greatest threats to a narcissist's control. It is not your money. It is not your success. It is not even the possibility that you may leave. The real threat is when you no longer depend on them emotionally. The moment you stop needing their approval, their attention, their praise, or their permission to feel confident within yourself, the connection they use to control you begins to disappear. They can no longer pull the same emotional strings. They can no longer create the same fear and uncertainty. And when a narcissist loses that source of influence, their behavior often becomes more intense. This is why they may become more aggressive when you begin healing. They are not reacting because you became weaker. They are reacting because you became stronger. The person they once controlled is starting to recognize their own power again. And that is the moment their entire system begins to feel threatened. Because in their perception, your recovery feels like their loss. Your calm feels like their emptiness. Your confidence feels like their rejection. They do not want you truly strong. They want you emotionally attached to them. They want you constantly seeking their approval. They want you reacting to their moods and their actions. The more you heal, the more threatening you become to the image of you they created in their own mind. Stay with me here, because this next part reveals something many people never understand. Boundaries are not barriers. Boundaries are reflections, and a narcissist struggles deeply with reflections. Every time you create a boundary, even when you communicate it with kindness and respect, you force them to confront something they do not want to accept. You remind them that you have your own identity, your own emotions, your own inner world, and your own direction that exists beyond their control. That reality can feel unbearable to them because in their unhealthy way of thinking, they often do not see you as a completely separate individual. They see you through the role you provide, the attention, the admiration, the emotional support, the constant reassurance that helps them maintain their own sense of importance. And when that role begins to say no, when that person begins to make choices based on their own needs, the narcissist may experience it as a huge personal betrayal. This is why they can react to boundaries as if they are being attacked. Your simple refusal feels like a threat to the entire system they built around controlling the relationship. Your no challenges the reality they created. And that is something they often struggle to tolerate. But here is the part that is rarely discussed. Beneath the criticism, the coldness, the manipulation, the guilt, the lies, the public image, and the emotional explosions, there is usually one powerful emotion hiding underneath everything: fear, deep fear. The narcissist may appear confident, superior, or completely unaffected, but beneath that surface there can be a constant fear of being exposed, a fear of being truly understood, a fear of being ordinary, a fear of rejection, and a fear of discovering that the identity they created is not as solid as they pretend. And the way they often handle that fear is by pushing it onto someone else. They transfer their insecurity, their shame, and their emotional discomfort onto another person. For a long time, that person may have been you. And this is why your healing can feel so threatening to them. Because when you finally release the fear they placed on you, they are left facing emotions they spent years avoiding. They can no longer hide behind your confusion. They can no longer escape behind your self-doubt. They are forced to confront what they were trying to make you carry. And what happens next reveals the truth behind their behavior. Once you understand this pattern, you begin seeing everything differently. The anger is not real strength. It is often fear reacting. The silence is not true power. It is an attempt to regain control. The blame shifting is not confidence. It is a desperate effort to protect a fragile image. The attacks on your character are not proof of influence. They are signs that their control is weakening. Suddenly, the person who once seemed impossible to challenge begins to look different. Not like someone all-powerful, but like someone desperately trying to protect a false image. And once you recognize that reality, you cannot return to the same way of seeing them. Once the illusion disappears, the old control loses its effect. But this is where the situation becomes even deeper. The narcissist's greatest fear is usually not simply that you will leave. Their deepest fear is that you will transform into someone they can no longer influence. Because the version of you they were comfortable with was often the version that depended on them, the version that questioned itself, the version that accepted blame too quickly, the version that kept giving even when it was exhausted, the version that forgave repeatedly and remained connected through pain. But when you become someone who understands your value, someone who moves with confidence, communicates clearly, creates healthy boundaries, and chooses peace instead of constant emotional chaos, you become unfamiliar to them. And someone unfamiliar cannot be controlled using the same old methods. Old wounds only work on old versions of yourself. When you grow beyond those wounds, the entire dynamic changes. You have created a new emotional language, and the narcissist no longer understands how to communicate through it. This is why healing can be the most powerful response to narcissistic control. Not revenge, not trying to prove them wrong, not attempting to hurt them back. Healing, because revenge can be rewritten as anger, exposure can be dismissed as bitterness, leaving can be explained away as something they wanted anyway. But genuine healing is different. Healing does not need their agreement. Healing does not require their apology. Healing does not need their understanding. A person who is truly healed becomes something manipulation cannot easily reach. A closed door that no longer opens to the same old patterns. A person who finally belongs to themselves. A person who is truly healed does not chase, does not beg, does not constantly explain themselves, and does not try to prove their worth. A healed person simply exists in their own truth. They continue living, growing, and building a life that feels peaceful. And in that quiet confidence, the narcissist sees something they cannot control and something they may never learn to create within themselves. Nothing can disturb a narcissist more than seeing someone they once tried to break walking peacefully toward a life filled with stability, self-respect, and freedom. Stay focused here, because this part reveals something extremely important. Self-respect is one of the strongest and quietest forms of power you can develop. Not the kind of self-respect that needs attention or approval from others. The kind that exists privately inside you. The kind that does not need to prove itself because it already knows its value. When you genuinely respect yourself, manipulation loses its entry point. Guilt no longer controls your decisions. Gaslighting becomes less effective because you trust your own thoughts and experiences more than someone else's attempt to rewrite them. Compliments and attention no longer have the same power because your confidence is no longer something you need to borrow from another person. Threats lose their impact because you have already stopped fearing the loss of something that was damaging your peace. Self-respect closes the doors where manipulation once had unlimited access. And here is something many people never hear. You were not easy to manipulate because you were weak. You were vulnerable because you had the ability to trust. You were willing to love. You believed that giving care would be met with care. The narcissist did not choose you because you had nothing inside you. They were often drawn to the qualities you carried naturally: your kindness, your emotional depth, your ability to understand, your loyalty, your compassion, the things they struggled to create within themselves. They did not come because you were empty. They came because you had something valuable, something they wanted to receive but could not create on their own. And the moment you truly understand that, something inside you changes forever. You stop viewing yourself only through the pain they caused. You stop seeing yourself as someone who was defeated by their behavior. Instead, you begin recognizing yourself as someone who protected the very qualities they tried to take advantage of. That realization creates a powerful shift. You stop only mourning the relationship. You begin mourning the time you spent disconnected from yourself. And slowly, even that pain begins to transform. Because you finally understand that you were not the person who truly lost. You were the person who endured, learned, and came back stronger. So when you see a narcissist suddenly becoming angry over small things, suddenly disappearing into silence, suddenly changing the story to make themselves look innocent, suddenly convincing others that you are the problem, or suddenly returning with overwhelming affection after treating you badly, do not only see confusion, see information. See a pattern revealing itself. See the emotional system reacting, because the old control no longer works. Understand that what they fear is not simply losing you. What they fear is losing access to the version of you that once tolerated everything. The version of you that questioned yourself. The version of you that kept trying to earn love. The version of you that ignored your own pain to keep the connection alive. But the new version of you is different. The version of you that has awakened. The version of you that no longer immediately reacts. The version of you that can stand calmly without needing to convince anyone of your worth. That person cannot be controlled in the same way. That person cannot be pulled back into the same cycle. And when that happens, you begin to realize something that may have been hidden from you for a long time. The power was never truly theirs. They were only able to use the power you unknowingly gave away. They depended on your reactions, your fear, your need for approval, and your desire to be understood. But that connection to your energy is no longer available. The old agreement has ended. You do not need to fight them. You do not need to expose every truth. You do not need to win every conversation. Some people will never give you the satisfaction of admitting they were wrong. Your freedom does not come from defeating them. Your freedom comes from no longer needing them to validate your reality. Keep healing. Keep learning. Keep choosing your peace. Every day you protect your boundaries, every day you honor yourself, and every day you refuse to become smaller just to make someone else comfortable, you are doing something much more powerful than revenge. You are becoming the one thing a narcissist cannot take from you: your freedom, a deep, genuine freedom that comes from finally belonging to yourself. And once you experience that kind of freedom, you cannot forget what it feels like. If this message connected with you, if even one moment spoke to something you have carried silently, do not ignore that feeling. Follow this channel, support this video, and share one word in the comments that describes where you are on your journey right now. Your healing is not just a personal change. It is a quiet transformation. Keep choosing yourself, because the person you become after healing is someone your past self may not even recognize, and that person is closer than you realize. Continue forward, trust your growth, and return to the power that was always within you.